Hey guys, welcome back. BDC Gar here. We're back with our weekly Q&A&T. This is season 4, episode 26. And to start out this week, we're going to start off with the question that we ran out of time to answer last week. This one comes from Fabio and Antoino.
Antoino? Because it's O-I-N-O instead of O-N-I-O, so I don't know.
Yeah. And
it wouldn't be a typo, would it? You don't think?
Hopefully not. You'd imagine they'd spell their name right, so probably a pronunciation thing. They say, what Doomsday is better to use, Blackest Night or normal one that you can buy? Also, what gear would be good with them if I think about using him with Batgirl and Earth 2 Flash?
Okay, so it's not so much the specific question as it gives me an excuse to talk about general principles of building a team, which is why I like this question. So, alright, so you're asking about Doomsday, but given the team that you want to use, specifically Batgirl and Earth 2 Flash, you've got to look at the other team members to help you figure out what you're going to do with Doomsday before deciding who you want to use and how you want to gear them, right? So unless you're missing gears, or maybe she's way weaker than your other team members, anytime you have Batgirl, the default for us is having her with Cloak of Destiny, League of Assassins Knives, and LexCorp Gauntlets, right? Her special one has that initial low damage hit that stuns when unblocked. Cloak increases stun damage, and the Knives increase special 1 damage with area effect. And LexCorp Gauntlets increase crit chance on special 1. Mm-hmm. So the Gauntlets have the added benefit of increased stun chance when tag in, but it's not necessary. Now, just because we're talking default doesn't mean that's the only way to do it, right? But if you're going to bring her in, you've got to have a good reason for not putting her in like that, not setting her up like that.
Yeah.
Now, all right, so here's the thing. Earth 2 Flash, she has a stun chance on tag in. And the Earth 2 team has a decent amount of synergy, so let's assume you don't have the other Earth 2 cards and make that Earth 2 team, right? Because our favorite is actually Earth 2 Solomon Grundy with Earth 2 Flash and Killer Frost, and we've got a video on that because it absolutely kills the opponent's power generation.
Yeah, so you don't even really need to worry about it.
Right, so that's one of the biggest problems, right? When you have to watch out for specials, both because of the damage, but also because specials prioritize in terms of speed, so they come faster than your basic hits.
Yeah.
If they're doing it. So now here's the thing: Earth 2 Flash is to me is much better as a basic damage dealer because his attacks are fast, or even as a specials specialist. So you might want to give him Cloak of Destiny to do some extra damage if he stuns on tag in, instead of putting it on back row. So this is what I'm talking about when I say maybe you've got a compelling reason to do a different loadout. Now, I would lean a little bit against this since he needs another teammate to be able to tag in and out to trigger stun, while Batgirl can do it on at any moment when she has 1 bar of power, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's also okay as a special specialist. Really, anybody can be if you have power generation gears, especially Tantu Totem and Master's Desk Guard. Oh, actually, I just want to point out in this fight, so you got to decide whether you're going to go for it and wait for Killing Joke Joker to tag out, or you can just let them get their bars and hope that because... ooh.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, because Deathstroke, the super, I think, actually prioritizes over the special, because I actually had the special started before Lobo hit the super. And so, that's okay, we killed Killing Joke. Oh, we still got it. Alright, so, and the good thing about Shazam is that his super doesn't do a lot of damage. Oh, and never mind. Alright, so, that means your going back to the question, your Doomsday is either a tank or something else if you're going to go tankless, right? Mm-hmm. Now, Blackest Night Doomsday's passive of doing more damage on specials is only useful if he does specials and if he's in the fight for long enough. But the regular Doomsday Prime's passive of getting health back with each knockout will help him be a tank. However, if you gear him to be a better tank, it's harder to take advantage of his passive because doing less damage, opportunity cost, means he's less likely to be the one knocking out anyone to get the passive to trigger. So you make him your tank because he gets his health back. But if you're actually using him like a tank, then you're going to have to time it just right to be the one to do the damage.
Yeah, at the end. Or you're just going to have to give up on getting the health back and have that be a bonus that happens sometimes and not actually something you rely on.
Right, so if you got a guy with a really good passive but you're not using it, then you could just as easily have somebody else in that slot. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think that hits some of the points I wanted to make on that. Yeah. So thanks for the question.
So there we go. Our next question comes from Pineapples Are Pretty Cool, but upside down and backwards.
Yep.
And they say, if you start to stream maybe once a week or every 2 weeks, you might get some donations from that.
It's an interesting theory, and I'm not sure what the basis for that is.
Yeah, I don't really think so. I think our content wouldn't be better for being streamed. I think if it was done live, it would actually be harder to have content of the quality that it currently is. And I don't know why it would compel people to donate any differently than they are right now.
Right, because I think we're still relatively responsive. We do the weekly Q&A&T, so I think people at least have a way of reaching us. And the logistics of doing a live stream, I think it means that we'd be getting a lot fewer viewers at the moment. And then the rest of it just becomes like a regular video, right? I think after you do live stream, you can have it up.
Yeah, as video on demand, VOD.
Right. So it's interesting. I mean, we've thought a lot about sort of the background stuff for YouTube. And I think at this point, we've actually... Never mind just maximize the income, which is sort of a secondary issue. I think I'm really happy with the way we've streamlined how we do it and the kind of videos that we're making now compared to when we first started. Yeah,
for sure. So there we go. I guess the answer is I don't think that would help. And I guess at the end of the day, even if it is, live streaming is probably not the kind of content that we actually could make.
That's right.
So probably not. Our next question comes from Phoenix23
with 2 E's, like the joke
Phoenix.
Brandy, like Brandy with 2 E's. Anyway, sorry.
And they say, "Hey guys, I got an interesting question for you. How strong of an effect do you think RNG and then in brackets random number generator plays in Injustice? Things like Jessica Cruz's combo ender and Reverse Flash's passive." On a side note, very much looking forward to the new content, and I have to agree, the vitality of this game has definitely gone up since the release of Tantu Totem. I've noticed some extra changes in the recent update. Things like Batman's swipe combo now has a knockdown effect. Albeit small changes, it's still glad to see some characters getting some love. Probably good, but I know how autocorrect gets ya.
Yes. Okay, so I think, random number generation, we can look at it from a bunch of different ways, but I think that if we're going to look at it broadly, there's a huge impact. I mean, there's enough that if there's anything, usually a passive, with less than a 50% chance of triggering, I'm not going to build a strategy around it. Basically it's a nice bonus if it triggers, but we're not screwed if it doesn't.
And if you just look at outside of the combat, random number generation has a massive effect in Injustice as far as, pack openings and stuff like that, right? Getting the characters that you need at higher elite levels, getting, rare characters, getting more powerful characters. A lot of that stuff actually has to do with random number generation, and to a certain point I'd imagine the matchups are a little bit random too.
Yes.
There's obviously some system dictating approximately who you fight, but exactly who you fight, I bet, is also governed by some probably random number generation.
Yeah, and since you mentioned that, I think it's a good reason why the airplane / refund glitch is so important, because what it does is it takes out one element of random number generation that makes it more frustrating.
Yeah, or it lets you re-roll it, so it doesn't take it out. You still have to experience it, but you don't have to actually spend the currency to try your luck.
Oh, and as easy as MP fights can be, depending on your team and the gear, random number generation actually it has a bit of an equalizing factor. So you've got stuff that doesn't hit every time, and in our personal experience, it seems like for the opponent that's controlled by the AI, they actually have a higher chance of random number generation stuff when it happens. Yeah. So, I think it actually makes for a more compelling kind of multiplayer fight when you can't fight against real people.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's not the only subtle tweak that they do to make the game harder and make the people that you're fighting against not as easy, like the way that they let them complete combos when you're blocking and you...
It interrupts your combo.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, for sure.
But that's not directly influenced by RNG. I think there's a ton of different stuff. I think RNG, in a lot of ways, is definitely not the biggest factor, but it's something that you always have to be worried about and always have to be, I'd say, working against.
Yeah. I mean, good example of where the AI gets an advantage is in the mother box. It seems like there's one fight, I can't even remember, it was the sequence, where the mother box triggered 3 times in a row when I was trying to do Deathstroke Special 2.
So there we go. The next question comes from Luke Jennings, and they say, "Hey, I'm back again. Thank you for your helpful videos. I've made a lot of progress from them. I was wondering what your thoughts on WWE Supercard and any other card grinding / farming games Thank you.
I think for me, Injustice is sort of a special thing. It's not so much that I like playing mobile games in general, which I don't really. I don't play a lot of games. And it's not so much that I like farming games in general, which I don't really, because this is the only farming game I play.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, it's that I have some investment, some emotional investment in the characters already, which makes it interesting to play. Mm-hmm. So the idea that I'm collecting wrestlers when I was playing WWE Immortals had zero appeal to me, but I kept on playing because the mechanics were similar to Injustice, and eventually it just wasn't enough to keep me going. But in Injustice, I grew up reading these comics, right, with Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm going to be collecting something, part of it is they're fun to play. They all have different sort of mechanics and nuances when you're fighting with them. But the other part is, these are characters that I know. What about you?
I think one of the things that I like about Injustice is that it's done a really good job of actually making the game fun. There's a lot of card farming or grinding games, collection-based games, that the game isn't actually fun by itself to play.
Oh, so that it's all farming? Like there's no other...
Or, there's different mechanics. It's not just farming, right? They say there's other stuff, but there's I think, a lot of other factors separate from the farming. I'd say the farming actually maybe takes away from my enjoyment of the game overall, and it's the fact that the other core stuff is actually good enough that it actually sustains it, right? To a certain extent, this grinding is good for establishing kind of a value of the cards that is kind of anchored in the amount of time that you spend.
Right, so you appreciate the cards, that kind of value. Okay.
Yeah, so it lets you have a sense of earning stuff, and it anchors a certain level is a certain amount of time playing. It's a certain elite level is a certain amount of money at the bare minimum, which is also a certain amount of time.
Well, that's
playing.
interesting, because especially in a game like this, where for free-to-play players, you can actually do pretty well. You're not obligated to spend money.
Yeah.
So then, if it is free, then there's got to be something, like you were saying, that anchors how much you value each particular character, if it's not going to be how much cash you spent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
I think it's I haven't played a ton of games that are really grindy. I think this is probably one of the most grindy games that's actually stuck with me that I've enjoyed. I don't think there's anything more grindy than this. And I think that's a testament not to the genre, it's a testament to this game specifically. I think I agree with you that it has less to do with the genre of game and more to do with the fact that Injustice is good, although I don't think the fact that its characters I know matter quite as much to me.
Right, I don't think you've read as many comic books as I have. Yeah.
Well, so there we go. Our next question comes from Master Player, and they say, I have a question. I'm making a team of Arkham Knight Batgirl, the Arkham Knight, and Deathstroke. I have no LexCorp except the chest, no League of Assassins, Astro Harness, Master's Death Cart, and Tantu Totem. What gears? I like that. It's almost like, what gives?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with this?
Hands up. Oh my god. So it depends so much on their level and promotion, right? So if you've max promoted them and you're missing all those gears, you've got to consider living with the possibility that you won't be able to create a very good winning team.
Yeah.
First is Arkham Knight Batgirl, right? She almost must have the Cloak of Destiny if you're going to really maximize her potential. Because at the point where she tags in to protect her Arkham teammates, and I'm assuming that you have Arkham Origins Deathstroke when you mentioned Deathstroke, you want her to take full advantage of her stun when she comes in, right? That she's got a chance of stun, interrupts when one of her teammates is about to get knocked out. So you want her to be doing extra damage if you happen to get that stun. To that end, you might want to give her Ra's al Ghul's Scimitar to guarantee that she has enough power for a special when that happens. Mm-hmm. Or you might want that gear slot open for something else if you can trust in your ability not to let anyone get to the edge of being knocked out until she's got at least a bar of power, right? Mm-hmm. So that you want to know that she's got a bar of power, and whether it's you doing it or her gear doing it, you want to make sure that happens. Deathstroke and Arkham Knight Batman are excellent basic damage dealers.
Yeah.
Was it Arkham Knight Batgirl, Arkham Knight? Oh, you actually weren't using Arkham Knight Batman. Never mind. So Arkham Knight Arkham Knight is a bit of a glass cannon. So he's got good damage. He's got lots of hits on his tap combo and his tap combo ender. But he's relatively low in health. So if you're going to leave Arkham Knight back row on the bench intentionally, you're going to be swapping out between Arkham Knight and Arkham Origins Deathstroke, then you could gear either or both of them as basic damage dealers or special specialist, but Arkham Knight is a better basic damage dealer than a specials specialist.
For sure.
And so with Arkham Knight back row, you can get away with actually not having a tank because she's giving you a second life with each of the other two guys as long as you don't let her get knocked out first, right?
Yeah.
Deathstroke is also a great special specialist, but without Tantu Totem or Master's Death Cart, you're going to need to work a little harder to generate power. You might want to put Razzle Glow Scimitar on him because of the extra hits on Combo Ender, so he can drain and also generate more power. So you've got a lot of options, but one of the things you want to do if you're going to be short on all those gears, and you haven't done it already,
keep their elite level low, right?
Keep it relatively low. You have no control over their actual levels. You know, you get up to 50.
Yeah, that just goes up slowly.
Yeah, you play with them, it's going to happen. So don't max promote them. You keep them somewhere around Elite 3 or 4, and you're going to have some really good fights. Even if you keep them around Elite 1 or 2, you get fewer battle points, but you're going to have a better chance at being competitive.
Yeah. There we go. Our next question comes from Necro Lord, and they say, well, this isn't a question actually at all. This is definitely just a comment, and their comment is, I love that you upload frequently.
I'm actually loving it too. We found a bit of a schedule, and I remember when we used to have trouble in our real life schedule fitting in a Thursday update, which is sort of the best time, right? Because the challenge comes out on Wednesday. Oh no, sorry. The new multiplayer season comes out on Wednesday, and the new challenge has been coming out consistently on Thursdays. So Thursday is a good time to take a look at what's coming up, and while still giving people the opportunity to take advantage of stuff, right? But you know, it's fun still, and actually it's fun more now with Tantu Totem. So I don't know if you our viewers, when I say you, have been paying attention, but ever since the Tantu Totem came out, we've actually been, I think, more consistently uploading videos.
Yeah, especially multiplayer team videos, and there's a good reason for that, which is that the Tantu Totem makes almost any team good if it's got a special specialist in it.
Yep.
That can deal a lot of damage with one of their specials. Any one of their specials.
Yes.
Yeah, so that... I think Tantu Totem really not only has reinvigorated the game to a certain extent.
That's exactly where I was thinking of reinvigorate. Okay, sorry.
I think to a certain extent it's almost reinvigorated the channel in just the breadth of content that we can produce.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the stats, right? I am seeing, maybe it's a combination of both, right? That we've got this new content that's really a lot of fun, and we've been putting out more content consistently, so that probably helps too.
Yeah, so there we go. I guess the long story short, thank you. We like it too.
Yeah, and you're probably not the only one.
Our next question comes from Rob Bob, and they say, are you meant to be able to get the new gears, Quake Engine, and Batman Ninja Helmet from the Dawn of Justice pack? Because you can, and I thought that it's a bit unfair if you can spend money and get it early.
I'm actually thinking the opposite, right? We've got precedent for that kind of stuff with early access packs, right? This kind of thing where you're spending money on getting stuff a little bit early, that's better than most games, I think. Because people can spend money to get their content early and maybe a slight advantage for a short period of time, but free-to-play players will get the stuff eventually too. So I can't think of anything that was money only that the free-to-play players can't get.
Yeah, so that's actually good, and I agree. I think one of the things that defines a good free-to-play game is that the only thing that paying money does is get you something faster, not get you something that you couldn't get otherwise. And there are some good games that give you rewards that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise that I think are reasonable. If it's like an expansion kind of thing, where it's a significant amount of extra content that they decided is behind a paywall, that's fine. Right? More power to you. If it's something where you get like XP a little faster or you get more resources when you play, that's, I think, not always as good. I think that's getting further from good, but I've seen games that I've enjoyed that incorporate that into it, and that's part of their payment model. But at the end of the day, the only reason that's acceptable is because they do the same thing that Injustice also does,
Right.
which is make it acceptable for you to actually make it reasonable for you to get the stuff that you would be getting if you paid money. So earning it is on the table. It's not impossible to earn stuff. It's not unreasonable to expect players to earn stuff. It's just an option to pay money, and it's not a requirement as much.
A bigger advantage than spending money is having played for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's actually, I hadn't really formulated in that way before, but it really rewards playing a lot and playing consistently for a long time, more than any other game I've played. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually the best way to do it, because not everybody has the money to spend. Yeah. And there's absolutely no, I'm trying to think of anything, but I can't think of any content that is only available for paying players. And I love Injustice. I'm happy to pay money for stuff that I don't even need just to support the devs, which is the energy recharges. Because there's a glitch to get free energy. Yeah. So, I think they've actually done a really good job for a game that's been around for however many years. And the way they've released new content, at some points, I thought that they were running into problems and they were sort of going off the rails, but then they'd come back and correct. Like, again, with Tantu Totem, they've totally made a bunch of characters relevant again without having to nerf them or unbalance them or rejigger them.
Which is impressive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good work done for, I would say, balance, but it doesn't even seem like they're too concerned with balance, and it doesn't seem like balance actually is an issue in the game. I think characters are unbalanced, and the way that they do matchmaker and stuff means that it doesn't matter how much better one character is than another. Yeah. It matters on some level, but not like in a kind of huge sweeping sense.
Right. And you have the flexibility to make changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? If anything, it would be even better if you're allowed to downgrade your characters.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, no, I think we mentioned this before. If you had the ability to, once you deleted them to a certain point, if there was like a up and down arrow next to their elite level, that you could actually just set it to whatever you wanted. And
I would still even be happy if they could just had down only, because you can always do the work to bring them back up.
That's true.
But yeah. Anyways, which leads us actually to the next question, I think.
So this question is from Segun, olaoye.
If that's an African kind of name, I think you pronounce all the letters or all the
olaoye
syllables. Olaoye. Hey, let us know in the comments what the cultural origin of your name is and how you pronounce your name, because I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah, and they say, this is exactly why I hate the Tantu Totem here. You're no longer playing strategically, but tapping away on special 2. Playing against the AI is a nightmare when using above Elite 7 players.
Okay, so this was a comment on our Lobo video, and I think actually it's the opposite. If anything, when you're playing with it and against it, you have to make a decision about how you're going to use it, whether it's tagging in or out, whether you're going to do a special 1 or special 2, depending on how you geared them, and whether it's multiple hits or single hits, and whether you want to kill time with Astra Harness, or whether you want to try to overlap, so you do your hits and finish them and still have extra hits that will take on the next person to protect you. It's like we did it with Killing Joke Joker, right? So that's a strategy you can use. You're living a little bit closer to the edge, and that time we fell off the edge, but we were able to reduce their super damage by enough that it didn't knock us out.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that you don't have to struggle as much or in the same ways when you have Tantu Totem, that it's a fundamentally different type of fight.
Yes.
But I don't think it's necessarily a worse fight.
Okay, it favors how we do it, right? Like people who rely on healing and drawn out fights that last a minute and a half, I think, they're going to have a lot more trouble, right? Because the more times there's tagging in and out, the more power they have, the more specials they're going to do against you. Yeah. But when we're already, our mentality is we want to hit them hard, hit them early, finish the fight as fast as we can. Tantu Totem is interesting. It can make fights more complicated, the same way, say, Raven makes a fight more complicated. Yeah. But it doesn't make the fight any worse for me. And
I think it's interesting because there's kind of the duality of Injustice in multiplayer as in everything else, where why you're actually playing can be different. So why you're playing, in a lot of times you're playing online multiplayer, is in my opinion, it's for grinding, right?
Right.
And that's if you want the rewards. And there's also when you're playing online multiplayer, which is to fight new and interesting fights, and to try to maximize the kind of fun of playing a team.
Right.
And those teams aren't normally the same ones.
That is absolutely true.
So a grinding team is probably in just the right range where you might occasionally encounter Astro Harness, but
right there?
Like there, yeah. But you don't consistently encounter Astro Harness.
Right.
Because at that point, you can probably have stats high enough that you can tear through people pretty easily.
Right.
And you can keep your fights a little bit shorter, but you don't have stats so high that you're fighting Astro Harness consistently, and then you lose all that benefit of finishing fights quicker.
And I want to go back to the original question, too, because the main flaw in the question is the underlying assumption that there's value in using anything higher than Elite 7, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying playing against the AI is a nightmare when using above Elite 7 players? Why? Aside from getting through single player mode, you're actually better off not going higher than Elite 7. I mean, we've broken through pretty much everybody that we can, but we haven't actually promoted them, a lot of them, past Elite 7 simply because there's no need. We don't need to get any further in single player, and we get better fights and more interesting fights, and we have more flexibility creating teams. Batman Ninja Batman, I've got him in Elite 5 right now. He's so much fun to play. He fits in with a whole bunch of teams, and he can still do like 1.7 million, 1.6 million in like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So maybe what you need to do is, I mean, it took us a while to get to this point, is not max promote everything that you can just because it's available. Because I think what it does, it really does mess up your roster so that you can't use the good teams. You end up with the wrong kind of opponents. And they're just too hard to face.
Yeah.
And that's not really it. I mean, it's not so much that it's hard to win, but each fight takes longer, and the longer fight takes, the more opportunities there are to make a mistake and then, screw up.
Yeah, in some respects, that kind of longer fight, more opportunities to screw up, more protracted stuff, that is what is closer to what some people might consider the more interesting fights, right? We tend to have fights that are higher risk, higher reward, that are quick. And that's one of the ways that we find interesting fights, where every once in a while when you screw up, you really have to struggle to not lose.
Yeah.
But longer fights can be, I think, interesting too, when it's less moment-to-moment gameplay making the difference. Like, for example, right here, where that single special 2 was, kind of the breaking point of the fight, where once we'd done that, we had, like, momentum to...
And I think I'd be more willing to consider like higher promotion if they would offer more battle points, which they don't.
Yeah, but I almost don't want them to offer more battle points. I think it's good that there's a huge range of way that you can play in which you're rewarded the same amount. I think that's not necessarily a design decision they want to make.
Right, that's true.
But there we go. That's all the questions, and that's all the footage we have.
Yeah.
So a huge thank you to our patrons. We have Alberto Jr. Camarillo, who is supporting us at the top tier, Last Word. We've got iProfit, who is supporting us at the Your Message Here tier. And we've got Daniel Simonson and Lane, who are supporting us on the credited level. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.